Well, here we are again, ladies and gentlemen. You are about to take a wild ride with a really amazing person, someone who has shown us all the way through perseverance and survival. And she's come through it with so much exuberance and joy in life. It is really astounding for someone who's experienced so much trauma. For her, it's just so light being in her presence. There's no heaviness at all. It was really astounding.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And so make sure you subscribe and leave a rating and drink adrenochrome cola. Get ready for a wonderful light ride with our guest, Boots.
Sis, hallo?
11.
Zeker wegen dem.
Two outlaws on the lam, taking the back roads through America.
You can't drink enough coffee for this show.
And now it's time for Monday Madness with the Moped Outlaws, Greg and Mark.
Hello.
What?
Welcome.
Live with another episode of Moped Outlaws. And we're here with Boots Knighton, who survived open heart surgery at the prime age of 86. Boots, welcome.
And I've since been reverse aged. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, you're sort of like, what's not Benjamin Buttons? You're like Boots Buttons.
Oh God, what have I gotten myself into?
Oh, a mess.
You're in for a wild ride on the Moped Outlaws show.
I know. I've been listening. I'm prepared.
That's very kind.
Beautiful. And so you live in the beautiful mountainous regions of Colorado. Yes?
No.
Utah?
No.
Virginia. Let's just name all the states.
You're failing me already.
No, you're in the Catskill Mountains, right?
I'm almost smack dab on the border of Idaho and Wyoming. So I'm in the Tetons.
The Tetons.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
And you went to Bozeman University.
I live where all the poor people live. And we're the hell to Jackson. Yeah.
You play banjo?
What's that?
Do you play banjo?
No, don't play banjo. I play the piano. So I'm right up against the Teton Pass, which is like the most famous backcountry ski area in the world, really. And it's 10 minutes out my door. So I'm super lucky.
Does that mean you're a skier? I
am. Wow. That's why I moved here a gazillion years ago. I'm a gazillion years old.
Wow. So this heart surgery was a long time ago.
It kind of feels that way. It's kind of amazing. I mean, it was really only 3 years ago, but it really feels so much longer than that. You enter this weird space-time continuum when your heart is stopped on purpose.
So, wow. What did they need to do the surgery for?
I had several different defects, none of which I knew about until at age 42 when I had a heart attack while mountain biking, and it made no sense. I was in the most fit shape of my life. I had just come back from a really nasty concussion and was like seriously in the best shape of my life and mind, body, spirit. So it made no sense. And after a month's worth of testing, they did all this imaging, an echocardiogram, heart CT. And two of the defects weren't necessarily causing the symptoms, but one of them which was myocardial bridging, which is this really crazy thing where in utero, as we're all forming and shaping in our mother's womb, our coronary vessels should end up on the outside of our heart, and mine tunneled into my heart muscle. And the reason why that's so problematic is every time my heart beat, it squeezed those arteries that were tunneled and cut off the blood supply. And so by age 42, those arteries started to give out. And the comparison I use is, if you've ever used a garden hose and you pinch off the water, it stops the flow. So that's what was happening. And if you do that too many times to a garden hose, it gives out. It just doesn't let the water flow through as easily. And so at age 42, my arteries were finally like, we've had enough of the squeezing business. And even at rest, even between heartbeats, the blood supply was still being impeded through those vessels. And so it caused a heart attack, it caused ischemia, it caused angina. And I'm one of the lucky ones. There's been many athletes over the years. No one's name is coming to mind at the moment, but there have been athletes who have died of myocardial infarction from myocardial bridging. And I'm one of the lucky ones as an athlete that I survived. And then I had to wait 5 months because, of course, this all happened during COVID in 2020. And so hospitals were shut down. My surgery got canceled at the last second. And I was out of time by the time I got onto the table. But ultimately, I had the surgery. It's called unroofing. There's not a lot of surgeons in the United States who do the surgery. And I just feel so incredibly lucky that I survived, that I'm now thriving. And, now I just want to pay it forward. I just feel like I've just been given this amazing new lease on life. It was a really horrendous, nightmarish experience that has turned into be the best experience of my life.
What was the surgery they did? You gave it a name. I forget what it was.
Unroofing, which is just such a strange name.
It sounds like they peeled back the part of the heart that was tunneled, and so your heart's still in you.
Yeah. So they just it was full on open heart surgery. So I have a huge scar on my chest. They cut into the myocardium, and then they cut away the heart muscle that grew over those vessels.
Wow, that is wild. And that doesn't impede the amount of blood the heart's able to pump through your body or anything like that?
It makes it better. Here's the crazy piece. Like, once I was through the surgery and through all the vomiting, I got super sick from the anesthesia. So I threw up 25 times after my sternotomy, after having my chest cut open. Not for sissies. Once I was done with that and it was time to move to my step down room in the PCU, I was in the ICU. I walked. They were like, well, will you through to the PCU? And I was like, no, I'm walking. Here, miss, I just had open heart surgery. And I'm like, I am walking. And in my mind, I'm like the fastest I've ever been walking. Right. The thing is like, even though I was still dopey from the whole experience, I knew I had really escaped death. Like, my heart felt like a brand new heart because it was getting blood flow. And my husband's videoing it. And now I go back and I look at the video and I'm like a turtle. Like I said, you remember it in one way, but a snail would have been faster than me. But I was like, I'm so fast and I'm walking from the ICU and I'm so.
So would you say you're a competitive person?
Funny you should bring that up. I was, in some ways, I still am. And when I was in the hospital, there's that app called Strava where you can compete against people. I actually use Strava to map my walks in the hospital. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, I came in.
Were you going? But were you going for better times every couple of days? Was that the reason?
I actually was. Strava was actually super helpful because it helped me see that I was getting a little faster each day, and it was this positive reinforcement. It could have been negative if I was getting slower and slower. But it was actually really helpful because then I could get in front of my cardiologist and my surgeon and be like, hey, in week 1, I walked this amount of time. And then in week 2, it just helps keep track of the data, because I was also having to keep track of my blood pressure, my heart rate, my temperature, just in case for infection. Once I got home, there was so much else I had to keep track of, and movement is so important after movement is just important, right? But like when you've had such a major trauma like that, it is so important to get out and move your body. It just speeds up the healing. And then it just helps with your mental capacity too.
Did you have the ability to ride your mountain bike again shortly after your surgery? Like, are you out there on the trails again?
Yes. So surgery was January 15th, and we met friends down in Moab, Utah, the last week of March of that year. And I rode my mountain bike.
That's crazy. Like 2.5 months?
Yep.
So did you in essence die on the operating table, or were you semi-conscious?
Thankfully, I don't remember anything. It's interesting. I was just recording an episode for my podcast right before this, and I was interviewing a woman who also had open heart surgery. And it's been really hard to find heart patients that will go there with me. And when I say go there, what I mean by that is talk about the more taboo, nuanced parts of heart surgery that Western medicine won't even dare talk about with you, which is someone physically touches your heart, right? They like cut down. For women, it's between like a delicate part of ourselves, our boobs, and you're just the most vulnerable you will ever be besides being born. And when this lady, she's like intuitive, and I am too, so like it's been so hard to find someone else who will like geek out with me on that part. To answer your question, I'm going to get to that through the story, which is when we have open heart surgery, our heart chakra is cut wide open. And she was explaining in a way that I finally understand, like the heart chakra divides like the bottom part of us that's more grounded to the earth, and then the top part of us that's more of like the spiritual aspects of self. And so when that's cut, when our chests are cut open and our heart is literally cut in two, it just disrupts all of that. And I've often wondered if I did die. So the way my surgeon explains it is my heart took a nap. That's literally what he said to me. And it took a nap for 45 minutes, and which is just, that still kind of makes my skin crawl, by having medications injected into it that make it stop. And the cells that make up the heart muscle are fascinating. They are programmed to just automatically start beating again the moment that medication wears off. It is the coolest thing. Like, our bodies are just the coolest. We don't give our bodies nearly the credit it deserves. We do better jobs of taking care of our cars and geeking out over our cars than our bodies.
That's crazy.
So talk a little bit about how you maintain the oxygen supply to your brain and that sort of thing during that 45 minutes.
So that's the heart and lung machine. So my heart's napping, right? And then this heart lung machine pumps the blood. And I actually have for y'all, this is crazy. So for those who might watch this on YouTube, this is a list of all the medications that were pumped into my body during open heart surgery.
Wow.
It's clearly a list over 75 things.
And then the back.
Oh my God. Wow.
So was ayahuasca one of those things?
I looked. No.
Well, so in that realm, like you shared that this woman and you have this realm of experience that Western medicine isn't touching on. What's the psychology? Like, what is the, like Marc and I often use shadow as an element to describe those elements of humanity that we don't want to look at.
Yep.
Do you feel like you went into a shadow realm?
Thank you for that question.
Welcome.
Beforehand, absolutely. And after, absolutely. Beforehand, when I had to wait and I wasn't sure I was going to survive. And even when, after I had signed the piece of paper acknowledging I could die in open heart surgery, and then I had to wait 5 more minutes before they rolled me into the OR, I absolutely met my shadow self and really had a moment of reckoning of like, okay, if I don't wake back up, am I satisfied? In fact, I just spoke on the TEDx stage about this. This was my whole talk on the TEDx stage. That's now on YouTube. But I mostly was. And then when I woke up from open heart surgery, and once I finally reintegrated into my body, which actually took a long time, I well over a year.
Wow.
Everything started to come into focus, and it really truly wasn't until this past fall. So almost 3 years that I finally got extra clear on the 2 regrets that came up prior to open heart surgery that I wish I had accomplished or done or whatever. And then they seemed so superficial, but as I dove into it with my therapist more and processed it, and then even preparing to speak on the TEDx stage, it even helped me get more crystal clear on what it all meant. And now I fully understand it, but it was not like this. Oh, I get it now, or I see it. Like it was such an overwhelming experience. And like I said, I was so disassociated because it was such a traumatic event to my body. And then my mom died 9 weeks after my open heart surgery of heart failure of all things.
Wow.
And so I didn't get to have this period all to myself where I could focus on my healing. So it was just complicated. And I haven't spoken to a single heart patient who's had this clean, easy recovery, approach during and then recovery from open heart surgery. We're all having heart surgery in the middle of our lives that are messy and weird and hard in the midst of COVID and the world doing what it's doing right now. I don't even know what to call it anymore.
Transformation.
Yeah. So.
Wow. That's incredible. Were you close with your mom? Did she live nearby?
So I'm an only child, and she lived on the coast of South Carolina in a community that's hard to get to, always 3 flights. And she was an alcoholic. And she was an alcoholic from the time I was 10 years old on. And her heart failure was all due to alcoholism and smoking. And so I needed her to die.
Do you have children, and are they potentially affected by any genetic reality that you face?
She said no.
But I have cats and dogs, and they all have their funny quirks. So no, kids didn't work out for me. And, now I know why. Like, I don't think my heart could have handled it. I really don't.
Do you feel like there's a Boots pre-operation and the Boots you are now, like kind of two separate lives? You are a different person.
Oh, yeah.
How's that been in your marriage? How's your husband been with, like, now he's married to a different woman?
Hard. I would say it's getting better and better, and even better than before. But, I hit my head in 2018 on the job as a ski instructor. And that was a really messy recovery that is a whole nother podcast episode. And then just as I was coming out of that, then the heart thing, and then my mom dies. And then I actually ended up having 2 more surgeries because, like I said, so my mom died 9 weeks after my open heart surgery in March on the first day of spring. And then in early June, once all my swelling had finally gone down, the sternal wire started poking through my skin. It was like, it was a nightmare. And so I had to have all the sternal wires removed. And by then, so the wires are pushed through your rib bones to hold your rib cage back together. And it's so medieval, like it is so medieval. And so, it was a lot of trauma again to my sternum, and my whole scar had to be opened back up. And that was just super traumatic for us because it was like another surgery. And then I kept having pain. And so 2 months later, we did a CT scan and found that the surgeon had missed a wire, and that also I hadn't healed properly and I needed to have a titanium plate put in. And so then I had a third surgery, which is just why I was disassociated for so long, because I just kept getting hit with these traumatic situations. So that's a long-winded way of saying we were really tested. It was just like the hits kept coming. And then this past December, so 13 weeks ago, I broke my leg. And so we have just had one thing after another, and we finally hit like this, I don't know, come to Jesus moment like a month ago, where we were like, we are so disconnected. It has just been one thing after another. This has really sucked. And we just kind of hit this inflection point of, all right, we either like actively choose to turn towards each other, or we just call it a day. And we've actively chosen to turn towards each other. We went to Baja, Mexico, and had a really great getaway, and it really was helpful. But like, and I feel so silly saying all this out loud, because there are couples who face way harder hardships. I mean, our house is paid for. We are fed. We are loved. We have insurance. Like, we have so much to be grateful for. So I feel silly even listing all these like challenges to y'all when like there are people who are much worse off, but it is what it is. And you just have to actively choose to connect each day despite what's happening.
Yeah. Or instead of what's happening, maybe even,
I like that reframe. Yeah. And yeah. So
what kinds of communication techniques are you practicing in this new paradigm of your relationship?
I laugh just because I don't think we're that evolved.
A Ouija board. You were each in separate rooms with the Ouija boards.
We just talk more. And for me, I can only focus on my side of the street. He has his side of the street. My side of the street is I'm trying to do a better job of communicating in the moment instead of like letting it fester, and then me exploding like right before my period.
I said, close the goddamn door.
Well, I will say that when we were flying back from Baja, I was still kind of a hobbling mess. I was off my crutches, but I was still kind of hobbling. And we were super delayed. And so like we had like a very short connection to get through customs and then back through security. Like that's just so stupid. Can I just call out the airports right now and be like, don't make us go back through security. Anyway, so it was not going well, like getting off the plane. And he called me Karen in front of like, don't be a Karen in front of like the plane because like we were stressed and we were tired and we'd already been delayed. And I waited 3 days to bring it up with him. And I was like, you're a dick.
I actually think that's healthier than that being called out in the airplane. You know?
Yeah, he felt really like once he realized what he did, then he felt bad. But I could have said it nicer.
So
Anyway,
just like learning.
We have some room to grow is what I'm saying, Mark.
Yeah. And so just like reintegrating into your body, you guys are reintegrating into your relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
in a whole new way. And we've been married since 2008 and we both say, I bet it's probably once a month. We don't even know who those two people were. And we're grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is he also involved in the sporting life of the region you're in?
Extreme sport.
What's he up to?
Well, today he's been backcountry skiing,
Nice.
and he is quite well known around here for his athletic pursuits. And he's quite the mountain biker, and mountain biking and backcountry skiing are his two main loves. So, yes. So we really connect over that. And we've also had to really find our way forward now that I'm not quite able to do what I used to do in the mountains. In fact, we were just having a conversation this morning because I am starting to set some goals for myself to come back from breaking my leg. And I really would like to get back into mountain climbing. And he was just like, but your heart. And I'm just not willing to give up on my heart. It only has just been 3 years, and I was told it would take 3 years to heal fully. And my cardiologist really believes that I can get back to like climbing all the bigger peaks in the Tetons and beyond. And so I'm actually setting a goal of climbing Mount Moran, which I haven't climbed yet, by September.
Nice. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think
So nothing's holding you back?
No.
Yeah.
No, as my buddy Tim says to me, there's no quitting me. I'm just, it was interesting when I broke my leg as I was waiting for rescue. I just climbed a mountain in December to go to ski down, and I was by myself, and I hit a rock and broke my leg. And I can say I've done enough personal work now to know that while I was waiting, before the pain really set in, I could already tell myself, I know that this is happening for me.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. With both you and your husband have this experience with extreme sports, right? And a part of that is very psychological, with fear and pushing boundaries and learning ways of consciousness so that your fear doesn't take over your biology.
Mm-hmm.
Has that knowledge helped in reintegrating in a new marriage, in essence, and your own personal path of healing from these 3 open heart surgeries?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what has really helped, Greg, is when I fully, radically accepted that I'm not getting out of here alive. People say that flippantly all the time. But do they really truly understand that that one day you will take your last breath?
I got you. Okay. So that sounds very much like the Buddhist thing where they say, meditate on your last day, meditate on your death.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I literally had to do that waiting like those 5 minutes before my open heart surgery. And that's what I spoke about on the TEDx stage. It really could have gone either way, and it could have gone either way for months leading up to heart surgery. And I had to do a lot of work with my therapist. We did EMDR. I wrote about it a lot, and I had to get to a place of true radical acceptance that A, I'd been born differently than I thought. B, my life was never going to be the same. And that my life might end up being a lot shorter than I had hoped. And you can't learn that from a book, or at least I couldn't. There are some people who can really shift their entire life, their entire timeline by reading a book. Good for you. I'm more experiential.
Well, let me ask you this then. For a lay person that is not going to be doing extreme sports, are there things that you're aware of that a person can do that will push their psychology in this healthy realm?
Of what do you mean, of practicing dying?
No, in essence, in a way, I'm imagining that you and your husband are the kind of people you guys going off 30-foot faces when you're skiing and things.
He does. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm more of a 5-footer. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're also someone who climbs up a mountain by herself to ski down it. Here's we just spoke earlier about the psychology of extreme sports and pushing your comfort zones, etc. Are there things that you're aware of that you could tell me that, I'm not going to go on a mountain bike. I'm not going to ski off a 30-foot face. I'm not going to climb a mountain. Are there things in just my normal day-to-day life on the streets that I can put into practice that would push my psychology in a healthy manner?
Probably. I mean, here's something. How often are we all grateful?
So
how
what does that
often
look
are
like?
we looking? We have choices, right? We can either choose to find everything that's wrong with the world, and there's constant reminders to keep just being in that mindset, or are we choosing to look for everything that's right in the world? I think that's the most basic place to start. Because how you start your day is everything. And how you finish your day, the last thing you go to sleep at night thinking about, right? And then everything in between is determined by your start and your finish. And so I can tell the difference between someone who is going about their day looking for everything that's right and then making generous assumptions about others. And what I mean by that is, so let me go back to that plane when my husband says, "Don't be a Karen" to me, right? Mm-hmm. So he said that because a man got mad at me because I kind of got up and tried to get us to the further front of the plane to get off. Because I knew I was going to need extra time because I was still hobbling, right? And how many people have you seen do that when your plane is delayed? People who know they're about to miss their next planes will run to the front of the plane so they can try to buy some time, right? Mm-hmm. And this man, I'm hearing impaired in my right ear, so I didn't hear what he said to me. He said, "You must think you're the only person in the universe." Now, thankfully, I didn't hear that because it would have been so hurtful, and I was not meaning to be that person. I just knew I needed extra time. He had two choices. He obviously made a really negative assumption about me, right? Mm-hmm. And then he said it out loud. My husband was embarrassed, and then he responded. That man also could have made the generous assumption of, this lady obviously probably needs more time to get to her next plane.
Or something in her life is hurrying her forward. Right?
Yeah. There was two or he could have made a third choice of just not even saying anything. Right. So anyway, and look about how that shifted the dynamic between my husband and I.
Yeah.
So how does this tie into one of the things I found out about you when I was researching this conversation? You identify as a joy facilitator. How does that play into this idea of generous assumptions?
Well, as you make an assumption of someone or something, it's going to determine your response to it. Right? And so my husband and I have talked a lot about that, like, split second moment in the plane since then, because it was such an inflection for us. I'm calling him a dick, like all these like things, right? Mm-hmm. And when you make a generous assumption about anyone or anything, it directly affects your vibration. I mean, think about it. That guy, he actually ended up being on our next plane. So here we have flown from Baja, Mexico. We are flying to Jackson, Wyoming, going through Denver International, and this guy ends up being on our next plane. And I could I'm just such an intuitive, and he's in shorts and a t-shirt, and we're flying to like 10-degree temperatures outside, and I could feel his energy. Like, I don't think he saw us on his next flight, but he just looked so unhappy. And I was like, no wonder he made that assumption about me. And I could feel it. And like, you can feel when someone is like really sad or upset when they walk into a room, they can change the whole room. Mm-hmm. Versus a comedian who comes in and is like, hey, like Robin Williams. Think about Robin Williams and how he used to just change the room, right? Mm-hmm. So what I mean by joy facilitation is when we meet someone with a generous heart, that immediately affects their like open-heartedness. It opens up this connecting pathway. And it just breeds this beautiful interaction versus when you're like making an assumption. Like, I have the most embarrassing story to tell on myself. 2 summers ago, I was not in a good place. I was still like processing my heart stuff. I was still having heart issues because I was still healing from heart surgery. And this woman, I'm walking my dog on a trail, and and my dog kind of runs up to her and scares her a little bit. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I should have put my dog on a leash. And she's like, yeah, right. You're not sorry. And she just immediately made this negative assumption about me. And I genuinely felt bad about it. But because I was in such a vulnerable place, and she met me with like this not so generous assumption, I was like, well, you're a jerk. It's this beautiful day in the Tetons, right? And I'm like, oh no, you don't. You do not, right? And it just snowballed in the negative direction. And I immediately caught myself in that moment, and I was like, I do not want to be this person anymore.
Yeah, to be the people we want to be.
I felt like such a bitch.
Ugh.
This reminds me of something I heard Carlos Santana say when I saw him in Vegas. He said, heaven is a decision.
Yeah.
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 So do you have a spiritual life yeah? Is it a religious practice, or is it more of a personal spiritual belief?
Well, I broke up with religion. I actually I had like this formal divorce. I made a production of it. I actually asked the pastor to breakfast in 2015. And I said, you are my, oh shoot, it just left me.
Nemesis.
No, when you're, oh shoot, it totally left my brain. I hate it when that happens. But anyway, I said, you are my conduit. I think that's the right word. And I said, I'm using you to break up with religion as I know it. And so I made a statement. I said, I am divorcing you.
Wow. How do you take it?
He was really shocked.
Yeah, good. Not the breakfast I thought I was going to.
Yeah. So I was like, I want nothing to do with this anymore. My best friend had been murdered the year before while on mission for the church and in a foreign country. And I wasn't divorcing religion because of what happened to her, but what that murder did when there's such a horrible grief like that, it just makes you examine all of life and turn all the stones upside down and look under all the rocks and be like, is this really what life means? And I was like, religion is officially bullshit. And so then I had to go through this grieving period of being out in this no man's land. And then I hit my head and I basically hit my thinker and completely lost all connection with anything I thought was up, down, left, or right. And what has come from that, and then especially since heart surgery, is I am absolutely spiritual. And in fact, I am so in touch. I'm more in touch with my intuition than I ever have been. And I have come to the understanding that there is a power bigger than us. And that and while there is a power bigger than us, I am in the driver's seat and I am in charge.
So when you had your heart attack, did you have a moment of sort of aspirationally reaching out to the higher power for assistance?
No.
Got it.
I would just wanted to survive.
So there wasn't, oh God, please help me, or any of that stuff happening for you.
I'm also,
so what?
I'm also, just to finish with that, I am of the full belief that everything is happening for me.
Yeah.
I'm in charge, and also everything is happening for me.
So when you relate to a picture of what spirit is for you, what's the picture that you have for yourself?
That spirit is acting through me?
Or just its form, its nature, its, how do you see it now that it's not connected to, specific religion, but you say there's a higher power and you're it on some level. You're not looking at, a picture of you as the goddess, right? Are you?
No.
So how do you see the aspect of your spiritual experience? What form does it take for you? How do you envision it? What is the picture for you?
Oof. I'm not sure I've ever really even considered that, Mark.
So I'll speak about mine if that'll help.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
So when I'm in the mountains or the beach and I feel that sense of awe at nature and the creation, then I recognize nature as the higher power.
Yeah.
The great mother, the cosmos, conscious awareness, all of those things. And so for me, when I think of, who my quote God is, that's the picture I get.
The Kool-Aid?
So how about you?
Yeah, I would agree.
Not the Kool-Aid man.
Oh.
No.
That's the prankster religion.
Yes. For me it is. And I'm guessing for you too?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, so it's like nature and the awe-inspiring aspects of this experience that we're having. The phenomenal world is for you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And prayer isn't a part of it. And it's not Buddha, Yoda, Muhammad, Jesus, or any of those people. Got it.
No, and I'm still figuring it out. Heart surgery just discombobulated everything for me for a while. I just know that when I accept that things are happening for me instead of to me, life flows. And the other thing I know is that the universe always has my back. And I use the universe to describe my spirituality, the power greater than myself. I'm also completely cool with the fact that I have no clue what really is bigger than us. Like that is so above my pay grade, and it is hard enough being human that I don't need to like subscribe to anything to figure it out anymore, because it's hard enough just being me.
Yeah. So you're resting in the power of it just is.
Yeah. Humans, we have this need to like classify things, put things into boxes, label them. And I'm like, can we stop labeling all of our dysfunction as like disorders and God and religions and political parties? Like, oh my goodness, like, can we stop classifying everything? It just limits. It's just such a limiting mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And the less I like put labels on things and people and like be like, what do you do for a living when I first meet them? And be like, and so what lights you up? Like, can we just stop with all these like black and white things that we do to each other?
I want to ask you another question, and this is going to feel a little bit like a left turn.
Okay.
So can you describe a moment in the nature or in the wilderness where you've had a really close encounter with some beast, some big mammal or some big animal? And what was that experience like for you?
So last winter, a mountain lion went on a walk with me.
Wow, that's crazy.
What was that like?
An actual mountain lion. It was the most beautiful, coolest thing ever. It was last January 2023. We were just coming out of COVID for our first time. And I was walking my two dogs, and we had seen the tracks. We have mountain lions around our house all the time, but I had not seen an actual mountain lion yet with my own two eyes. We had gotten on our game cam and all of that, but I'd not seen a mountain lion with my own two eyes. And we're walking along, and I look down this embankment, and there's a little mountain lion kitten walking along beside us. And it had its eyes on us, and it didn't mind, and we didn't mind. And I freak out, and I like grab my phone, and I'm like thinking I'm videoing it. And of course I forgot to press record because I'm like shaking and like, oh my God. And, and then it like starts climbing this tree in front of us. And then its brother or sister, we had walked back past its brother or sister that had been sleeping on a branch. And it joins its brother or sister on the branch, lays down, and they both start taking a nap, and they proceed to sleep there for 6 hours on my property.
Wow. And you didn't have any worries about a mother close by that?
Oh, yeah.
You were worried?
Oh, yeah.
Because I've heard that's a very dangerous situation. That's the dangers when the parents protecting the young. I
wouldn't say I was worried. I was just cognizant. And I had my two dogs, so, right. And they're cattle, they're blue heelers. So, and then also just this year, we had a mountain lion on our porch. We own the house next door. They had a mountain lion. And then, I had a bear just casually walk through my yard last summer and climb a tree and then sit in front of my kitchen window for a while. I mean, I could go on and on about this question, Mark. My property is right up against public land, and you can, from my back door, you can walk all the way to the state of Montana through the Teton Range and all the way through Yellowstone on public land and only cross two roads. So almost all the wildlife goes through my yard, with the exception of bison. It's just not their part of the ecosystem. And pronghorn, they don't go through my yard, but everyone else does.
That's wild.
Yep.
Do you have bald eagles?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. They nest right below my house. We have, I think my most favorite is our sandhill cranes.
Never heard
They
of
will start arriving next month, and they nest right below my house. And I live in this beautiful, like, little sub valley of Teton Valley called Game Creek. Game meaning all the wild animals. And so we've had wolves on our game cam on our property. We have coyotes, foxes. I mean, all of the ecosystem is here, except, like I said, no bison, because we're up on the mountainside and they don't go up mountains. And then the pronghorn don't pass through here. That's it.
So do you
What relationship?
With that,
What relate?
do you and your
What about
husband?
that?
I'm just going to drink some tea and let y'all figure
Yeah,
it out.
we'll figure this out. We're pros. Don't worry. We got this.
It's your first time. I get it, guys. I got you.
So, the question Greg wanted to ask was,
Do you and your husband hunt?
No.
Is that a personal choice or just not the time?
I don't know how. I wasn't raised that way. I was raised to fish, but I mean, we rescue spiders. So we eat meat though, but like we can't even bring ourselves to kill like little spiders in our house. We call them all of our roommates. So
So you guys hunt in the Safeway aisles.
exactly. No, I'm actually really conscious about the meat we do eat, and I buy locally. We've got several hunter friends that we will give money to, and they'll give us some food, some meat. But yeah, we can't kill anything.
do you have a relationship to any of the indigenous cultures that were on the land that you live near?
That's a great question. What do you mean by relationship? What would that look like to you?
You have some sort of interaction with people that are members of the tribe, or have some kind of awareness of the different tribal sites that are there, or, you go and you have steak night at the local Indian casino. I don't know. What's it like for you?
Well, so my husband actually went to school on an Indian reservation growing up and in Washington State. And so he actually has a very unique awareness around Native Americans. And we actually listen to a radio program every Sunday morning it's based in, is it Taos, I think, or Moab? I can't remember. That has all Native American music, and it's amazing. We are very aware that where our house is, and in this little Game Creek Valley I was just speaking about, was the last inholding of Native Americans in Teton Valley when the Mormons actually discovered Teton Valley. And I'm actually on the board of trustees for our county library system. And we're doing more work around bringing more awareness to the Native Americans here. But we also, the Mormon religion is so dominant here that the founders get most of the attention. And again, I'm putting that in quotes because it's like, who really founded Teton Valley, right? Like that's for another podcast. But yeah, I mean, it is not lost on me that that we are in a special place. And to go even further, Mark, we bought the land next door to us that hasn't been developed, and on purpose to preserve that last little bit of land in this little nook, because we know how important it is and we know how special it is. And it feels like a spiritual experience just being on that land.
Are there any indigenous tribal members that are in your community that you're aware of? Do you have any contact with remaining descendants of that tribe? No. Okay.
No, it's such a bummer. It is such a bummer. Now, the Blackfoot Indian Reservation is like an hour and 15 minutes from us. And I know that there's been attempts to like bridge that gap, and we've talked about it with our library. But I personally have not had that opportunity. When I was doing my master's degree in education, I have my master's in curriculum and instruction. I focused a big part of my thesis on the Wind River Range over in Wyoming and the inequities of education on Native American and on Indian reservations versus, just the general public school. And it was really not okay.
How did your husband end up being schooled on a Native reservation?
Yeah, so he grew up in Grand Coulee Dam, and that's the school just for the whole community was on that reservation. And it really was not a good experience for him. He really did not get the education he needed to get. And I just is so, I see how that still plagues him to this day, and his sister and his friends. Like there was a difference there. It was a very unequal education compared to what I received.
Is your husband Caucasian?
Yeah.
So, wow, that must have been very unique to identify as white on Native.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has a very different view of Native Americans and of education that would make a lot of people very uncomfortable.
Do you think, as we talk about gratitude and keeping positive, do you think it's plausible that in our lifetime we will see a profound healing of the diverse cultures of the United States?
I don't. And the reason why I say that is because as long as people continue to watch their televisions every night and turn on to these talking heads that tell us to look for all the things that are wrong, it's going to be really hard to overcome that. The joy facilitator side of me wants to have the hope that we can overcome it. And I do think we will eventually, but in our lifetime, I don't know. I don't know. And I'm just waiting with bated breath for this next presidential election. And I can't wait to get to the other side of it. And I do think it's darkest before dawn. I do think that there's, that statement has never been felt more true. I just don't know if we're going to have the privilege of witnessing it in our lifetime. But I will say I'm from the South, and I left the South for many reasons, one of which is some of the cultural aspects of it. And I have seen some really positive evolution there in their thinking, even in my dad, who's almost 80. But I just don't know if it's going to be in our lifetime. I think we're all helping lay the groundwork, and we're all doing a lot of the heavy lifting. I do think that.
I need a quick minute, so you guys continue. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Do you think something is on the tip of your tongue, so to speak, as a result of having this next opportunity to live another life? Is there some kind of work or some kind of devotion that you have to a new possibility as a result of being given a new chance at life?
Yeah, I love that question, Mark. Wow. I might start asking my own guests that. That's awesome. I mean, when you go through something that traumatic, surely it's for something. Like, I've been listening to Billie Eilish's Barbie songs. She wrote for Barbie, What Was I Made For? And I love it. Like, obviously it's for the movie, but the more I listen to it, the more it's like not just about this plastic doll. It's like about all of us. And I really truly believe that I have this one slice of perspective that I would love to share with the world, which is why I did the TEDx talk. That's why I started my podcast. And I'm now starting to do more and more public speaking because I've benefited from those who have been vulnerable and willing to tell their stories and to get on stage and to write their books and do all the things that I have learned so much from. I mean, we were speaking about, Robin Williams earlier and other comedians, and like, think about how the world would have been so less colorful without them having the willingness and the vulnerability to grow and share from their hard experiences. So that's, So that was a long-winded way of saying, I'm writing books. I feel like I'm just really getting going on my podcast, and I really want to shift how the medical community approaches heart surgery.
That makes sense. It really makes sense considering your level of experience with it. Yeah. Well, you've mentioned your podcast, so we should mention that the name of the podcast is The Heart Chamber. Mm-hmm. And as I understand it, this is your second podcast series. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, my executive producer is now calling it. I'm now in season 3, and which is just crazy. Next week, I will release episode 42, and I'm starting to do more and more solo episodes, which I'm really enjoying. It's been such an incredible growth experience, like putting myself out there. Like, I never thought I'd say, hey, I'm a podcaster now.
Everybody's saying it these days.
Yeah. But then the coolest thing is I get to meet folks like you. Like, I've had the best time being a podcast host and then guesting other podcasts. I absolutely eat this stuff up. Like, I live in the Tetons. Like, there's like 5 of us and we're all white, like, I want to, this is my way of traveling out in the world without having to go through security and be called Karen again by my husband.
That dick.
Love you, Jason.
I'm wondering, we had a really insightful guest about a week ago, I think, who mentioned that he came across the information that Hitler was really abused as a child, and kind of had this profound idea of how that he was an advertiser, and he thought, oh, this could be a great advertising statement about child abuse. And so I'm wondering, have you had any time or insight into your mom and her history that brought her to the place and character she was, at the time of her death?
That was quite the left turn, Greg.
Welcome.
Now, Mark, that is the definition of a left turn.
I live with this all the time. I love it.
Yeah.
So now that we're here, what do you notice about the things that happened to your mom that might have led her down this path?
Oh, there were so many. I mean, she grew up poor, and then she had 2 brothers and another sister. And my mom was really intelligent and she wanted to go to college, and her parent told her that they couldn't pay for her college, that they were saving up to pay for her 2 brothers, and that she belonged in the kitchen, basically.
Mm.
And my grandmother was really a mean woman to her. And my mom got married at age 20 just to get out of the house. And then she and my dad divorced when I was 10. And so she just didn't have the coping skills, the distress tolerance skills. That's like a dialectic behavior therapy term. She had absolutely nothing. It's interesting you asked this question because I've been working with a therapist for almost 10 years now. And the irony of that is I got in to start working with this therapist because when my best friend was murdered, I did not have the coping skills to deal with a murder. And little did I know that was like the least of my worries. And it's taken me almost 10 years to like really get a clearer, like crystal clear understanding of my childhood with my mom. And I can describe it in one word, which also describes her: void.
With this, are you... have you forgiven her? Not yet.
Well, I think I have. And then I see it in a different way. And then I have to forgive that. And then I forgive that. And then I see it in a whole different way. Yeah. And then I have to forgive that.
Yeah.
And with me breaking my leg, it's really interesting how when you go through a challenging time, when everything just has to stop, where like then things just kind of come up. And so all of a sudden my 17-year-old came out to play in the last couple of months.
Wow.
And my 17-year-old has been pissed.
Wow. It's interesting. You talked earlier how we want to
compartmentalize.
Thank you. And, black and white. I think we also want these epiphanies that transform everything. And now we're okay. And my experience is it is a continual process of like, oh, I'm not done yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just last week, I was throwing things in my therapist's office. I took in all my ski clothes that had to be cut off of me because, of course, I broke my leg when I was skiing, right? And I was like, if I have to see, how like the hospital gives you like the white plastic bag that says personal belongings and they put your name on it. And I was like, if I have to see another one of these damn bags, and I'm like throwing it because like how many personal belonging bags have I had now with my heart surgery? Like, anyway. And the reason why I was so upset was because my physical therapist wanted me to try putting on a ski boot. And when I did, I nearly vomited in my living room, and it wasn't from the pain.
Right.
It was all the psychological trauma from breaking my leg.
Yeah.
And I was like, why is this coming out 12 weeks later? And I was like, I thought we talked about this and we processed it. And I was just so pissed. I was like, can I just move on? I'm walking okay. I have so much rehab to do still. But like, I was like, why is this 3 months later coming up? And, but I talked to my surgeon about it just 2 days ago or yesterday. Actually, it was just yesterday. I had my 13-week checkup. And I was like, I said, now I'm not okay. I was like, I'm actually like really not okay. Like, I'm not sure I ever want to ski again.
Wow.
And he was like, oh, that's right on time. And I was like, excuse me? And I mean, I've never broken a bone. So I broke both my tibia and fibula. And he said, well, the first couple of weeks, you're just glad it's not worse. And then you're focusing on the healing part. And he's like, now that you're walking and you're able to like mostly get around okay, he's like, now the rest of your body feels safe enough to say, like, we have trauma here we need to deal with.
Have you explored some of the trauma healing aspects that are out there? Like, I'm aware there's one, like you see animals. I'm thinking of Mark's earlier question about all the wildlife in your realm, and animals shake off trauma. Have you explored those realms?
Oh yeah. So I go to acupuncture every week, and in fact, my acupuncturist came to my house as soon as I got home I had to have surgery. Of course, I had complications. Then I had to go back to the hospital. But once I was like home and like done being in the hospital, she came right to my house and did a whole bunch of needling for processing the injury. And then my therapist and I do a lot of EMDR. And we just started really diving into the accident last week. And we've only gotten to the ambulance ride. We haven't even gotten to the surgery part yet. Because it's just so intense.
What is EMDR?
EMDR is amazing. You need to look this up. It's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. I think I'm remembering that right. And it's how I got through my friend's murder. It's how I processed all my heart stuff, my mom's death. Like, what it does is it takes whatever is in your brain, whatever memory, whatever trauma, and it just anesthetizes it. And so I can talk about Karen's murder, and my nervous system doesn't respond anymore. So it doesn't make it go away.
Right.
It doesn't make it better. It just doesn't activate your nervous system. And that is everything.
Yeah.
I mean, we are all just a bunch of nervous systems walking around each other, trying to regulate each other. We're constantly feeding off each other. Like, when we hug each other, that's a way that we regulate each other. When we fight, it's like all these we're just constantly reacting to everybody else's nervous systems and ourselves, right? And so with EMDR, it just makes a really traumatic situation not take over your day, not hijack your ability to function throughout the day.
That sounds
powerful.
It's so incredible.
What is it about libraries that are so important to our cultures?
Well, it's for everyone. Like, it is, think about the public library is the only space in every community that is literally for everybody. You can do so much for free. You can get your library card. You can go talk to a librarian who will help you find a book, apply for a job, achieve the GED, do research. I mean, there are countless opportunities in a library that you otherwise, like, think about it, you have to pay to engage in any other building in your community.
And what is it that you do
by everyone?
What is it that you do to support? What is it that you do to support libraries in your life?
Well, like I said, I'm a trustee, and so I'm part of the governing body of our library system in Teton County, Idaho. By law, there can only be 5 of us on the board of trustees. And so we basically set policy, we oversee the budget, we oversee the executive staff. And it's been an incredible way to serve the entire community. Now, not all Teton County residents have a library card, but over 50% of our residents in our county have a library card.
Has the whole thing erupted in your county of banning books, and so that hasn't reached you guys at all?
No, it's reached our state, and oh my gosh, the Idaho House just passed a bill. They didn't pass it yet. Unless they did this afternoon, and I just don't know about it yet. But they are wanting to add more language around people being able to object where books are in the library, and they want more sexually explicit books to be in the adult section instead of the kids section. But to my knowledge, that's not even an issue. Like, it hasn't been. And now they're making it so people who object to where these books are, whoever, you can find fault in a book, it could be any book, and then the library will have to move it to the adult section. And if they don't move it, and you don't like that they didn't move it, then you can sue the library for $250. And so that's making its way. They tried to get the same bill passed last year, and thankfully our governor vetoed it. But now it's making its way through again. This is the same house that this is the same house that the house, this is just today, how the Idaho House passes a bill blocking cities and counties from regulating knives.
Okay.
Happened today.
So you can do whatever you want with a knife, but watch out, man. Those books are dangerous.
I tell you, you could get a paper cut.
Well, you get hit on the head with one,
God.
Those hardbacks could be dangerous.
And so to go way back to several questions ago when you were asking me, do you think in our lifetime, I don't remember exactly the question, like, will we be delivered from insanity? When I see stuff like that, no.
Yeah.
It's hard to have hope when my knives have more freedom than a book.
Well, from my experience, you're in a very personal, intimate relationship. Marc's in a very personal, intimate relationship. To me, those are great grounds to practice these spiritual high thoughts that we hold as important to life. Like, that's where, like they say, as the rubber hits the road. Like, when your husband calls you a Karen, and you're like, you take a breath. And, for me, I believe waiting 3 days shows a nice high consciousness. Room for improvement, of course, but.
And I've grown a lot to even get to that point. I'll just say that.
And I will say, you mentioned his name earlier. I forget it. It was
Jason.
Jason, right?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like you've brought him through quite a few personal challenges in your life. Like when your friend was murdered, you were married.
Yep.
And then this head trauma, and then your open heart surgeries, you're breaking your leg, your mom dying.
Mm-hmm.
He's agreed to a big basket to walk with you.
And he's still here.
So my hat's off to you, Jason.
I'll tell him.
He's getting a good deal.
Oh, thanks.
Says the guy in the other state. I feel like it's time to ask our all-important question.
Yeah, we ask our guests the same question at the end of every podcast, and it's really important to us. And so we want you to answer truthfully and from the heart. Mm-hmm. And we might ask you a follow-up question or maybe not, depending on how we feel about your answer.
We might flunk you.
No, I'm just kidding. So here's the question: Foo Fighters or Eminem?
Oh, Eminem.
That was quick and easy.
So tell us about why that's your answer.
He came from a really complicated childhood and rose to fame. I mean, he's been an incredible force and for good. And isn't he sober?
Yep.
Yeah. And so I'm sober. And that just speaks volumes to me about his willingness to be self-reflective and work on himself. I mean, the Foo Fighters have done some incredible things too, but Eminem. And in fact, this morning on the way to the gym, I was listening to Lose Yourself, and his performance at the halftime show of the Super Bowl. I hate the Super Bowl with everything that I am, but I did not miss that halftime show.
Yeah, that was a solid performance.
Yeah. Yeah. That
So
was
how
a
do people
surprise.
I think
How do
also,
people-
wait, real quick, Mark. Because with the halftime performance, one of the things that got pointed out to me that I didn't even think about is he took a knee.
Yep.
You know, so the whole football realm of taking a knee is so, and he was like, and I heard that he was told not to do it. And he was like, you know what?
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was an incredible performance.
that was good. Yeah. All right. Sorry, Mark. You were saying.
Well, I was just getting ready to wrap up this show. It's been really great talking to you, Boots. You're an
Oh, this has been a
inspiration.
blast.
Oh, wait, real quick. How'd you get the name Boots?
Well, it's my legal middle name.
Oh, wow.
So it's on my license and birth certificate, and I'm
Your
named
mom and
after
dad.
an incredible woman who lived down the street from us, and she raised 5 daughters, and she always called me her honorary 6th daughter, and she was nicknamed Boots after her grandfather, who was nicknamed after a pair of boots that he always wore. So I am named after footwear just a couple of generations back.
Wow. All right.
Pretty funny. She was an incredible woman, but yeah, so funny. And she lived to 89, and yeah, even as she was dying of a heart attack, she was thanking the people who were helping her. She was just the most amazing soul. I feel really, really honored to have her name.
It sounds like she did quite a bit of mothering that your own mother wasn't able to do.
Yep. That's exactly right.
Well, hats off to Boots, too.
You guys are awesome. Thanks so much for having me on. This has really, really been fun.
It's been a blast. Good luck with your rehab on your leg.
Hey, thanks.
And until the next adventure, celebrate everything.
Thank you so much, fellas.
Recording stopped.